to live on. And actually this ecosystem is under threat because of our impact on it. And that's written in here. Here we have some examples of environmental degradation, pollution, depletion of resource, overfishing, overpopulation, climate change, deforestation. But the basic thing is here, which I call the equation of stupid. That the Earth as a whole has a limited carrying capacity. This carrying capacity should be bigger than our impact on it. So this is the total impact of humans on our on the planet, on the carrying capacity of the planet. And this impact factor consists of two factors: the population size and multiplied by the average ecological footprint. This is basically what the Club of Rome report said in the beginning of the 1970s. But as we all know, since we know that the Limits to Growth report, the population size still grows. Also, the average ecological footprint still grows. So our problem is not solved at all. It is increasing and increasing, and we know that there is a limited carrying capacity. What we don't know is what the point of overshoot is, what the turning point is. That's what the scientists are working on. But we know there is a limit to it, and we are doing this huge experiment in which we might well, end up with the collapse of the ecosystem or some kind of degradation. So I think that when we are thinking about ethics, we have to think about where is the most harm, and then we have to think about environmental ethics, because we are endangering the future of future generations. So that's why environmental ethics, in my opinion, has priority over all the other ethics. I mean, you can think about euthanasia, but if you don't have a planet to live on, there's also no use thinking about euthanasia or abortion or something like that. So we have to solve this equation of stupid, and it is stupid because it's so simple and we still can't solve it. Actually, that's like the problem of the tragedy of the commons. So here we have, but then we can look at what kind of attitude do we have against towards nature, and then you can see that there are different attitudes which humans can have towards nature, which goes from very despotic to unio mystica. So from well, despotic use of the environment, just looking what it can do for you now, here, not thinking about any consequences, to do nothing at all and just contemplating, sitting under a tree. And we are all despots. We say we aren't, but we are, because we are using up resources, non-renewable resources. We are multiplying ourselves. We have a too large ecological footprint. So actually, basically, we are despots. So, and I think that in order to change ourselves, we have to move to revise our attitude towards nature, to include also, and in a way to do that is to expand our moral circle to also include future generations, non-human animals, all humans on the planet. Okay, so and the nicest thing is that you can use this idea of green liberalism, that everything is allowed to do as long as you don't harm others. And harming others, if you expand that with the idea of sentientism, that it is also future generations and non-human animals, then it limits what we can do. Our whole idea of economic growth is based on, we are harming future generations, we are harming people in the third world, and we are harming animals. So if we take this idea seriously, green liberalism, we should really radically revise our society and our own lifestyles. And how this is, you can look at the harm impact scale. The harm impact scale is, you can use this both individually and collectively. It means that as we are alive, we harm others. I mean, if you're walking on the grass, you probably kill insects, so there's no 0 point. But you can move on this harm scale either to less harm or more harm. And like every time you go shopping, you can decide, how much harm has this, what I'm buying now, on future generations, on non-human animals, on people in the third world? It's a choice. If I go on holiday, do I fly to the other side of the world? Does this will contribute to climate change? This will harm others? So you can say, how much harm do I want to do? So here is the eco-vegan who has chosen to have a very small ecological footprint. And in the middle is the average Westerner. And then, of course, celebrities who have a large ecological footprint have contributing much to the ecological problem. And we can as individuals, we can decide where we want to go on this harm impact scale. And also collectively, we are speaking about economic growth, which means growing our ecological footprint. And the idea, the strange thing is that if we look at the role models in the media, these are all the celebrities and stars, which actually means they have a large ecological footprint. I mean, if I mention to you an ecological vegan like Berg, probably no one knows him. So that's the weird thing. We are geared towards, well, Ban Ki-moon said we are geared towards the abyss, and our foot is stuck on the accelerator. That's what Ban Ki-moon said. So that's actually, he actually understands this equation of stupid. Now let me end with something positive. That's always hard when I'm starting on this track, but I can start with something positive. And the idea is that, of course, positive would be to move this way, but I give you an idea of an ethical theory which you can use in daily life, which might be helpful in solving problems. And this is the idea which is called, it's called universal subjectivism. And then you have to think that you yourself, you are here behind the control panel. And you can, yourself, you can set the controls and arrange the society you want to live in. So it's a thought experiment. Philosophers do thought experiments, not the laboratory work, but the laboratory is in your head. So use it. So, and then you set the conditions of the society, and then you push the ready button, and then you end up well, imagine you end up being disabled in this world. And if you are disabled and you don't have any facilities planned in that world, well, you might want to have a world which has these facilities for if you are disabled. I mean, so you can't choose not to be disabled, so you just end up here in this position. So this is a module. But next one is that you can end up in a position, well, like a woman in Iran. Then usually I ask my audience, is anyone who wants to be a woman in Iran or Saudi Arabia, in which you are not allowed to drive or to study or to choose your own partner. So, so this is a way to judge, also to morally judge other cultures, traditions, law, values. So, and usually there's a 100% consensus that no one wants to be a woman in Saudi Arabia. The next module is, imagine that you're not born here, but it is you that are born in Ethiopia and you are dying of starvation. Does anyone want to die from starvation? So it's not, you don't have to have empathy with that poor starving baby in Ethiopia, but it's you. And if you say, well, I don't want to die from starvation in Ethiopia if it was me, well, then you have to set the controls in such a way that even if you are a baby in Ethiopia, you're not going to die from starvation. I don't know exactly what buttons you have to turn here, but it's a thought experiment. So and the same thing here, imagine being a homosexual. Well, if you are homosexual, you'd rather be in the Netherlands where you have same-sex marriage and social acceptation, but in many countries in the world there's no social acceptation, and to quote in Iran, they hang homosexuals. So this is only, even if you are a homophobe here, you have to imagine being a homosexual yourself. So these are modules. Now, next two modules, the last one is imagine that you end up as an animal in an intensive farm in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands we are living here with 17 million people, and we have about 450 million animals living here. So if it's by chance, if we're thinking only about the Netherlands, then the chance that you end up in a factory farm is much larger than that you end up here and sitting in a room. And then I usually ask, does anyone want to be in that position. I mean, getting castrated without anesthesia, or usually I don't see many fingers going off that day, or it doesn't matter. But if you say I don't want to change, don't want to be in that position, that means that you have to set here the controls to create a society in which these positions don't exist. These are called worst off positions. And if you think of in your laboratory, in your head, of a new worst off position, you can just insert it into this theory. What if I were, well, and then you go through this full experiment again. The last one, which is I think the most important one, is that you're not born exactly right now, but in 50 years, 150 years. Imagine that you're born in 100 years. Well, look at what happened here. The desertification, biodiversity loss, overfishing, climate change, deforestation, all have increased. Do we want just overfishing? If we continue overfishing like this, many scientists say there won't be any fish in the ocean left. Do you want to live in a world in which there is no fish in the oceans anymore? And if you say, no, I don't want to do that, then we have to drastically go here and change the settings. It will be difficult how to solve this tragedy of the commons problem, but we have to try. I mean, and this gives you an incentive to thinking about, to enlarging your scope of moral empathy, but without having empathy with others, because you can stay as egoistic as you are, and you don't have to have any empathy with other people, but just with yourself in one of these worst off positions. And I hope that is a positive idea for you to give you a hands on moral problems. Thank you very much. Is any questions? I mean, I just... Yes, yeah,
yeah. Now, first of all, I want to compliment you with this very clear overview, and I said, well, it's a nice placement, but I think it really would not be better if you go to some restaurant and before the soup is coming, you look at this and say, oh yes, it's very good, it would be very good. I would stimulate it. If it will be sold as a placement, I will support it. So, now I have two different remarks. I think in our personal philosophy we don't differ that much, but still I have some problems now with when you talk about heteronomous ethics, you say immediately that's nonsense. And when you talk about metaphysics and other sorts of things, you say, well, that's not serious philosophy. Mm-hmm. I wonder if you present philosophy, or if you can exclude ways of thinking which are still prevalent in our society. I saw in NRC Handelsblad now an interview with Hans Witteveen, our former Minister of Finance, and Herman Wijfels, and they talk about the importance of meditation and so on and so on. They say all sorts of things which I don't believe and which I don't take that serious. But if you as a philosopher can exclude that completely and say this is all nonsense, I have some doubts about that. Another remark, quite different, is you talk about green liberalism and you don't talk about green social democracy. And that I think there is a limitation on your notion when you use this principle, the no harm principle. That's related to what's called in philosophy the notion of negative freedom. But there is, I think it goes back to Isaiah Berlin or so, there is also the notion of positive freedom, and that's much more dominant in, for example, in social democratic thinking, that you have not just to avoid doing harm to people, but you have also to help people to develop them. And I think that the accent in your presentation is too much on the no harm principle and not enough on the positive liberty. Then a third question, but that's a question to the biologist here. Can plants also suffer? I know about animals, but can plants suffer? That's the third point. But I think that's enough. Three discussions. So that's my three remarks.
You want to start with plants?
Oh yes, I like people. It depends on the definition of suffering. Yeah. That's a good reply. But yeah, if you say like people, actually we only know